Hello, everyone. Hey, my name's Chris. I'm deputy editor of Rabbit's Foot, and I'm really excited to introduce Luca Guadagnino and Stefano Baisi on stage to discuss the world building of queer. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Stefano and Luca, thank you so much for joining us today. The first thing I wanted to ask you both is, well, actually, this is directed towards Luca. When did you first come in contact with Burroughs' work? I mean, this is a project you've had in your mind 33 years in the making.
I got to know Burroughs through this book, Queer. When I saw this, I used to be quite solitary when I was a teenager and growing up in Palermo in the 80s. And I remember I found a lot of solace and a lot of wisdom spending time in this bookshop called Sellerio, which eventually became also a publishing house and a very important one in Italy, where the clerks were very kind and let me be staying there, reading through books without paying them. And I remember very well the moment when I found this name, Burroughs, which I might have seen somewhere, but you know, the unconscious never stops and always tell the truth. And so I was attracted immediately by that. I was attracted by the title of the book, which was Italian, so it was titled Diverso, which means different. And the book I bought, and I read immediately, and I was completely bewildered by it, and I would say change. And it was a sort of terminal moment for me because nothing was the same after reading that book. Of course, then I dived into Burroughs' canon deeply, extensively, for many years. And then I abandoned him, only to find him again in waves. So in a way, Burroughs has been a companion and a friend and a lover of mine for the last almost 40 years.
And, you know, you've worked with Stefano through your interior design firm that you have. What was it about Stefano and the work you'd done over the past few years that sort of made him the correct person to bring this vision to life?
Stefano is very shy, so he's gonna blush now. You know, like I like craftsmanship. I like the capacity of seeing things that do not exist and foreseeing the possibility of something that doesn't exist to become. And I reckon that Stefano has the same attitude toward things. We started working on a project for a house that was a sort of almost a bet. A friend of mine, a very rich person, asked me to do a villa on the Lake Como because he saw the picture of my own apartment on a magazine. I thought like that I had taste, and he gave me this chance. And I am kind of bombastic. I was editing Call Me by Your Name, and I was shooting Suspiria, and yet I said yes. And throughout that period of time, while I was managing 2 movies, I did this house. And at the beginning, I started the process with one architect that was a friend of mine, and then we realized that this was too big of a project, so we found more people, and among these 2 more, I met Stefano. You know, and I felt with Stefano there was a level of profundity and commitment to the art of what we were doing that it's quite remarkably unique to me. And when I hope there are not production designers I worked with before, but it's difficult for me. It's very difficult to deal with the heaviness of the machinery of the cinema in the making and the departments and all of that. I still am kind of a beginner because I do not know how to play to the rules. I was working on a project with a very important producer and a great one, and they made me meet these amazing people in the industry, and they were already ready with all the books and stuff, imagery, almost sketches, and I was like, oh no, no. It's almost like making love dressed. How? And we are post prudishness, right? And so I almost felt that I wanted to drop the idea of working with a production designer. I was really flirting very heavily with the idea of making my own work as a production designer. And I got to put together Queer. I had these amazing people at Fremantle to support this movie and to make me do the movie the way I wanted. So there was a lot of freedom there, and I felt like maybe I should do my own work as a production designer. And there was a few minutes of thinking maybe Stefano could be my assistant, that turned into no, Stefano should be the production designer. And I texted you, I guess. I had to give you the book a year before. You haven't read the book for a year. Then he read the book, and then I said, "Do you want to make the movie as a production designer?" Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is your first film project that you ever embarked on. Before that, you were an architect primarily.
Yes.
What was the biggest difficulty in transitioning from, design and architecture into the machine, let's say, of a film?
I don't know, honestly, because I think that when you work on a creative project, you can have, of course, different approach, but you always start from the concept of create something from scratch. So I think that the characters of making a movie were different than the architecture, and of course I found a lot of difference between my previous job and this that I can't call job. Yeah, but I think that the more complicated things was to manage so many people and create this world of queer in a very tight time frame, and make it real and yeah.
I mean, the film wasn't made on location, but you actually travelled to South America, didn't you, in the early stages to sort of, to follow in Burroughs' footsteps?
Yeah, we decided together. Luca suggested to see the real places where the story has been take place, and so I immediately went to South America. We took the opposite trip than William Lee and Allerton. So we started from Ecuador. We went to Panama City and then Mexico City, and I think that was very important to understand the real places and understand the proportion between the buildings, the patina of the buildings, everything. And then we decided to go in another direction, but that was important to understand how the real places looks.
And your mood board for the film is so varied, but when you start to learn who you were inspired by, it really all makes sense. I mean, we discussed Powell and Pressburger backstage.
Because we have many students here, I guess, right? I want to say something. Mood board is like a forbidden word.
Yeah.
No.
No mood board.
That is for advertisement agencies. I produce. And when a filmmaker comes to me with a mood board, that's the death of the interest that I have for that. So we didn't have a mood board. We had conversations. and we had ideas that led us to confront each other with other personalities that could be kind of sort of like light direction for us. Because if you go on the principle of mood board, you go on the principle of images. And if you go on the principle of images, you can only collect beautiful images. But the great Robert Bresson said, do not make beautiful images, but create the juxtaposition between two images that creates an invisible third, which is what is cinema about. So the idea of like an imagery being built by sourcing imagery, particularly now, where you can reclaim imagery in the orgy of the internet, it's bad. So we didn't do that. We were thinking like how these people would have thought of this story, but starting from one very important principle, which is that this book was not a book set in places that was set in these places in this period of time, but it was the outcome, the painful, ironic, and provocative outcome of the unconscious in pain of this man. So the places and the people in this book are the kind of projection of his desire and of his unconscious. So that was the principle upon which we started to create the world and to think about it and to try to find it. So going back to your question that I interrupted, we did have in mind few important sparring partners. Some from the painting world, art world, and some from cinema. I would say one is the great Michael Borremans, which we had the privilege of also having as a character in the movie, as an actor. The great Francis Alice, another wonderful Flemish painter, and the filmmakers Powell and Pressburger, which always are in my personal imagery, because I think their idea of cinema was so solitary and so unique and always in a way against the industry of British cinema, and yet very popular, that make me feel close to them. I don't want to be rude though, eh?
No, not at all. Why did you choose to work at Cinecittà instead of on location, however? Why specifically Cinecittà as well?
Here's the story. Like, if you are recreating the unconscious of a writer, then you have to create it. You cannot adapt it in reality. And one of the great dangers of this movie would have been to make a period drama, which is something that I did not want to do at all. And by the way, I wrote the script from this book when I was like 20, and there was like a note in the first page that said, this has to be all recreated on stage. So I knew already then. Cinecittà, it's an Italian production, and I never shot in Rome, anything. That was my first time and the last. And I thought it could have been, I thought we could have managed to get better prices and a lot of creativity at play. I changed my mind.
Stefano, can you please describe the scale of the sets at Cinecittà? I mean, there's a great story of you discussing how the jungle sequences, they were built from mounds of dirt left over from construction. Is that true? Can you?
Yeah. We had, if I'm not wrong, we had 8 stages. One was the millwork area, so all the people that were cutting woods and building the sets, basically, and the furniture of the set, because a lot of furniture has been created from scratch. And we had 3 exterior areas. One of them was the jungle. We initially decided to shoot the jungle on stage, but at some point we had to move outside. That means that we shot it during the night also. And we found this hill in Cinecittà that was made by the dirt of the construction site of a mall on the side of Cinecittà. And we dig the hill, and we created all the paths in the jungle. And then we built the jungle. That means to provide a lot of plants, fake plants, real plants, and big fake trunks, and the hut, of course. But despite the concept of the movie was a sort of dream, we decided for the jungle to be accurate, and we hired this botanical expert in Ecuador that gave us the list of the real plants of the jungle in that area, that is Puyo, the region of Puyo in Ecuador. And we found a lot of plants in Sicily, and we created the jungle, as you can see.
Also, we went to a company who does fake plants for pseudo-oriental restaurants, you know, when you see all these plastic flowers. Big company. Because in Cinecittà, like a tree was coming at $100,000. And so I went to Bergamo, and the plant was coming at $5,000. So we bought a lot of fake plants in Bergamo.
Stefano, you had to do a lot of research to understand who William Burroughs really was, and that obviously, you know, so much of the film is in the Ship Ahoy, which is the famous bar he used to frequent. How immersed did you get in Burroughs' life? How much did you research into Burroughs' life, and then how did you use that research to produce the Ship Ahoy into reality?
So we studied, of course, the life of William Burroughs, and we had the honor to has been helped by Oliver Harris, that is the most important scholar of Burroughs. And so we knew that the life of Burroughs was not only in the United States and Mexico City, but he traveled also in Europe, and he spent 2 years in Vienna, and he was born in St. Louis. He moved to New York, and then he escaped in Mexico. So we also knew that the places described in the book were not completely real. I mean, maybe they has been inspired by real places, but not in every of them in Mexico City. So, speaking about the Ship Ahoy, it was described as a strange place with phony lamps, with nautical elements. And during the research, we found this beautiful image of this ocean liner, the SS Normandy, on one side, in a pier in New York, with a little smoke comes out from the boat. So we researched about this boat, and we found these images of the third class of the ocean liner, and we took inspiration from those images to create the space.
Yeah, and the Rathskeller bar was, I mean, that especially was difficult to reproduce, wasn't it? You had to do you had to almost fabricate that from scratch in some senses.
Yeah, the Rathskeller is a typical sort of pub that is typical in the Vienna in Austria, in the cellar of the buildings. And we took inspiration from South Tyrolese architecture to create this this bar. And I mean, also there are influences of Wiener Werkstätte and Hoffmann and all those designers of that period in Vienna.
I think we've got time for like a couple of questions. Can I open it up to audience questions? Can we, should we do the woman over there? Maybe in the black? She's had her hand up for a while.
Well, should I stand up? I don't know. Well, hi, sure. I'm Gaia, and I'm also Italian. I'm from Venice, but I came here to study film. Hopefully, I can make it and my career can be as great as yours. But my main question is, I've been following your work for a lot of years, and I know that you studied in Italy at first. So how did you exactly build your network in order to film outside and do such big productions like Call Me By Your Name or like Challengers elsewhere? Because that's what I'm trying to understand now. It's like, how do you build your network in another place?
I don't think it's about networking at all.
Is it not?
No.
No.
I think it's about...
Everybody keeps talking about this. Like, every day I have people talking about it, like, oh, you need a network in order to make it and stuff like that. Is it actually true? Well, kind of.
It's my least favorite emoticon, but yet. No, I don't think it's about networking at all. I think that's a very, like, how can I say, it's a trompe-l'œil, French would say. You're seeing something, believing it's real and it's not. I think, and I don't think, first of all, Call Me By Your Name wasn't such a big project. That movie cost $3 million. We were really fighting to make it. We collected bits and pieces here and there. And my very dear friend, Timothée Chalamet, was a wonderful actor kid from New York. He wasn't Timothée Chalamet. He became, which is the power of cinema. And is the power of Timothy's talent, gifts. How can I put it without being dismissive? I think
it's okay, you can be mean.
If you first of all, I didn't do any film school, so I'm kind of the wrong guy here tonight, because I don't believe in film schools, honestly. Like, anything you want to learn about being a director, you can learn in a very attentive 1 week on a set. Day one, you learn the lenses. But if you don't know how to deal with people, and there are two things. One is external, one is internal. If you don't know how to deal with people, you can do 7 years of film school, you never learn. And if you don't know how to know yourself, it's even worse. So what you call networking, I would say, it's a conversation with yourself and understanding who you are and why you want to be a filmmaker and what measure of existence being is that you're seeking in order to live and be who you want to be and how you want to be. And then, if you are someone who are easy in conversation with people, you'll have the capacity of expanding the way you get to know people. But none of these people will be instrumental in your becoming and being somebody unless you don't know who you are as a person and what you want to say as an artist. Networking may be working properly for politicians, for management of companies, stuff like that. Not for cinema, no.
I think we have time for one more. Oh.
The gentleman over there.
Was Mr. Craig your first choice to play William Lee?
I don't see the person asking me the thing.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I think Daniel was my wishful thinking. I'm quite ambitious and I'm quite bombastic, so I'm not shy at what I want and how I can get it. But my wonderful agent, Brian Lord, suggested the name in our initial conversation after he has read the script. I'm going to say something about Americans and Hollywood in particular. And I said, well, I wish. And he said, let me send the script. He sent the script, and Daniel was on board a week afterwards, which is one of the miracles of cinema.
His agent as well?
Sorry?
His agent as well?
He is represented by Mr. Lord as well, yes. But the thing about I learned about Hollywood is that Hollywood is the land of plenty, you know, it's ripe, and it's brutal, and it's like doesn't take hostages, but they know what they're doing. They know everything. These people knows Burroughs by heart. When you talk about Burroughs in another industry, maybe people don't know who is he. But when I talk about Burroughs with Mr. Lord, he has read all his books. Being a great agent who has a lot of responsibilities. And so it's interesting because never label somebody and make them be what you think they are, because they will surprise you. I think that gentleman has raised his hand in the first place.
Thank you so much. Hi, Stefano. Hi, Luca. So I'm not from Rome, but I lived in Rome. And by the way, I love the world of queer. And I'm just wondering, you spent some time in Roma Sapienza, and what is your relation with Rome? And I would love to see like Rome from your vision. Like, would you ever tell a Roman story? Yeah.
I lived in Rome for like almost 15 years. I hated every day in that.
Me too.
I can't. It's the opposite of the way I am. Like, you know, like there is, you know, like there is not a set of rules that determine how the city should look. So it's a chaos. And it's an aesthetical chaos. It's like almost like painful to look at.
Agreed.
It's impossible. And the problem with Rome is that being the eternal city, they think they've seen everything, they've done everything, so they are not enthusiastic. And I am the opposite of a cynical person. I'm a naive person, and I am enthusiastic, and I want to be happily surprised. But when you deal with an infrastructure that is like not surprised by anything, it's not nice. And the industry is very bad. I mean, the industry of cinema. It's a disaster, actually.
Thank you.
Is it recorded?
I think this might be recorded, yeah.
Is it going to go
Should we
online?
edit it out for you after? Should we edit it out for you after? Yeah.
I stand by my words.
Should we do one more question?
There is a last one.
Yeah, can we have this woman in the
I'm
front,
taking
please?
over the conduction.
It's the mood board.
Hello. Hi, Luca. I'm a huge fan. I Am Love is one of my favorite films, and I'd love you to talk about your relationship with Tilda and how that came about, how you guys met, and you've collaborated on quite a few projects now. So could you talk a little bit about that? Because I love her as well.
We end on a note with the wonderful Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
In the same period of time where I found this book, Queer, I also had found the amazing artist Derek Jarman. And I remember that I didn't have a VC recorder player at home, and I convinced a classmate to let me use his in his house to watch a cassette that I wanted to watch, which was Caravaggio by Derek Jarman. And so I put the cassette of Caravaggio with like a bunch of Palermitano teenagers for middle class. And of course, I was dead in my reputation in the school after that. But I discovered that incredible filmmaker and this wonderful presence of a woman, Lina. She plays Lina in the movie. So I became obsessed with finding more. And once Orlando came out in theaters, I was a big fan. I knew everything. And I knew the power of speaking a language that Tilda speaks, which is the power of the difference, the power of not being at the center of things, but being proudly wearing with a badge of honor the colors of difference, and the scandal that comes with that, and the grace that she brought with that. So one day I read in the newspaper that she was presenting a season of independent British cinema at the Palazzo degli Esposizioni in Rome. And that was really a great moment, because I was like, I'm lazy, so I was saying, oh, I have to go all the way there with the bus and stuff, and I'm tired, I don't want to go, or do I go? And I decided to go. So I was there in the foyer of the cinema, and there she is, already like an incredible presence. She must have been incredible at the age of 3, 4. Imagine the parents, like, ooh. And I went to her and I said in a very impossible English, worse than this one tonight, if you can imagine. And I told her that I wanted to make something with her. And she said to me, I can't talk to you now because I have to introduce Derek Jarman's Blue, his last masterpiece. Have you seen it? Yeah. In a movie theater? Maybe. And, but I can call, if you call me in my hotel, and she gave me the name of the hotel, we'll set up a meeting. And I called the hotel, and she picked up. And we met, and we never parted ways. She's amazing, she's incredible, and an endearing source of inspiration. And you know, we did so many things together. It's fun if you think of what we did and what we will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.